NFL Insider reveals the 3 finalists for the New York Jets GM position as Woody Johnson is calling these men in for interviews today. And we also have the timeline of when they are expected to be hired. So what's up, guys? I'm Matt Long. Welcome to Jets Digest. Before we hop into the video, if you're not subscribed, this chart is a tiny bit outdated, but only about 20.2% of viewers are not subscribed. So please, if you're enjoying the content, please hit that subscribe button. It only takes a second and it helps me out a lot. Hopping right into this video, Albert Breer has tweeted out that the Jets will conduct in-person second interviews with Broncos assistant Darren Mogi and Bengals senior personnel exec Trey Brown for their GM job tomorrow, per source. That tomorrow is, of course, today. This morning, January 23rd, is the day when these GMing interviews will be taking place. Commanders assistant GM Lance Newmark was in Tuesday. Those for now are the only 3 finalists. So we got 2 interviews today. Lance Newmark got his second interview with Woody Johnson yesterday. Let's hop into talking about our first candidate here. This is Darren Mogi. He is the Broncos assistant GM. He's been with the Denver Broncos since 2012 when he joined the franchise as a scouting intern. So he joined the lowest level of scouting that there is with the team, but then he sat in, learned his way up, and eventually made it all the way up to assistant GM and is now, of course, up for a full GM position. He saw highs from that franchise like Super Bowl 50. He also, just this year, he was part of the group that found Bo Nix, the franchise quarterback for the Denver Broncos. He was drafted at 13 overall. A lot of NFL GMs and draft media guys didn't think Bo Nix was worth a first-round pick. He was part of the group who decided that he was worth a first-round pick, and they are reaping the rewards of that. Bo Nix looks like a franchise quarterback in the NFL today, and looks like the Broncos have their guy for a very long time. The important takeaways from this interview are 2 things. First of all, he is the assistant GM. 2 of the 3 candidates who got a second interview with Woody Johnson are the assistant GM of their team, which means Woody Johnson covets the front office members with this role for his next general manager. Also, he found the franchise quarterback being Bo Nix. So Woody Johnson, again, 2 of the 3 candidates getting their second interview were part of groups who found a franchise quarterback like that. So hopping into our next guy here, we have Trey Brown, executive from the Cincinnati Bengals. He is currently the Bengals senior personnel executive. He started his front office career in the NFL in 2010, where he joined the New England Patriots as a scouting assistant. And then he moved over to the Philadelphia Eagles in the early 2010s, where he took a bunch of different positions and kept moving up, even sometimes hopping leagues. He also has front office experience in the Alliance of American Football and the XFL before returning back to the Bengals in 2022, where he currently holds his role of senior personnel executive. So if you take a look at his job history, there are 2 stories that you can tell. There's one story of, is this guy does he keep getting promoted? Because he's had a lot of different jobs. So you're saying, is he keep getting promoted, or is this the guy that no one wants to keep? Because like I said, Patriots, Eagles, XFL, Alliance, Bengals, that's a lot of different teams. But if you take a close look at the roles that he's taking, I do believe each and every job that he took was an upgrade on the job that he previously had. So I think this guy strikes me as a hard worker and someone who is clearly putting in the work to get these promotions. And you could say that he also has a lot of experience, seeing how not only has he done it with a bunch of teams, he's also done it in a couple different leagues. So this guy is going to be prepared for anything. He's going to be ready for whatever Woody Johnson can throw at him, because we know Woody Johnson is going to throw, I would call it a curveball, but Woody Johnson probably has a whole new pitch to throw at this guy. Let's talk about his draft history with the Cincinnati Bengals, what they've looked like. He's been, of course, we talked about Bo Nix with Darren Mogi, but let's talk about who they have drafted when he's been the senior personnel executive. 2022, they took Daxton Hill, defensive back out of Michigan, I believe it was. The Bengals have been losing their safeties free agency recently, and they desperately need a corner, and they still desperately need a corner. He didn't solve anything. Their 2023 first-round pick was Myles Murphy. He has 3 career sacks through his career so far. In 2024, they took Armarius Mims out of Georgia in the first round. He was a very, very raw prospect. He's still someone who needs development. But these first round picks, I understand they're not all on Trey Brown, but they're a little bit worrisome. This track record of first round picks, it's definitely not, I would say it's not something to write home about, but it's honestly something that you just leave off your resume when you walk into Woody Johnson's office. However, of course, Woody Johnson has done his homework. He knows that he's been a part of drafting these players. And in full transparency, in 2023, when they drafted Myles Murphy, the guy with only 3 sacks, he was always a project. He was a risky pick, and they picked him at 23. So I do think the risk reward was there, but we can't ignore the fact that he is at this point of his career is looking like a bust only 2 years later in 2020, or I guess coming up on 3 years later now, because he was drafted in 20, I got it right the first time, 2 years, 2022, 2023. Also in that year, he found Chase Brown, the running back, who's looking really, really good for the Bengals right now. I'm not going to give him credit for finding a running back late, because if you know me, you know I think those guys are everywhere. You know I think there's a Braylon Allen, Chase Brown type in almost every single round of every single draft to ever come out. And quickly, those are the 2 guys getting interviews this morning. The guy who already got an interview yesterday was Lance Newar, the Washington's assistant GM. He is the second guy that we talked about earlier who has the position of assistant GM. And he also was part of the front office who found Jaden Daniels, franchise quarterback for the Washington Commanders. Honestly, he looks like a top 5 quarterback in this league. If he could find something like that for the New York Jets, we would be cooking with some gas here. Looking at his history, the most important part, Detroit Lions. He was in that franchise from 1998 to 2023. So he has familiarity with the Detroit Lions, who, I got another guy who has familiarity with that franchise. Someone very important, goes by the name Aaron Glenn. He's our new head coach. So Lance Newar has history with Aaron Glenn. They're most likely going to want to do a lot of the same things that they did with the Detroit Lions on the New York Jets, and we all would sign up for a turnaround like the Detroit Lions. Yes, they haven't won a Super Bowl. It's only been 2 or 3 years. They're well on their way. They're well on their way. Their team is fantastic. I don't have to sell anyone on the Detroit Lions right now, so I'm not going to. So we also have, like I said in the intro, the timeline when these guys are expected to be signed. This is according to Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports. The New York Jets are planning second interviews with Broncos assistant GM Darren Mogi and Bengals senior personnel executive Trey Brown for their vacant GM position. The Jets had a second interview with Commanders assistant GM Lance Newar yesterday as well. These Jets GM interviews will take place today, and there's an expectation a decision may be made by the end of the day. So if you were excited by the Aaron Glenn news, getting a new head coach, we might be adding new blood to the front office, another potentially exciting hire for the New York Jets. So we can, if news like this breaks, me and Chris are going to be all over it. I'm going to have to make another video at work. But if you guys stuck around this long in the video, thank you for watching. Please hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Jets.